Thanks for joining us for Political Talk on another PolitiPod Live. I'm Tom Bickle,
And I'm Matt Nisanoff.
here to discuss current political events. Tonight we'll cover Oh Shoot. We'll check in on the Stooges of the Week, Tim Waltz update, budget in the U.S., about local government, New York City version, and a Trump dump. We'll also have our segments International News and local government. So let's start, Matt, with disturbingly timely Oh Shoot.
Yeah, disturbing is absolutely correct. This is an incident that's just taken place this evening, and an ICE officer doing whatever it is they do decided to take it to the next level, and he actually drew his weapon and shot a woman that he was trying to kidnap. And it is such a level of malfeasance that it was disturbing to everyone except for the other ICE officers, who immediately started to say that there shouldn't be any sort of concern about this, and this is perfectly fine, and they have medics. And now a person approached them and said, "I'm a physician. I can, let me check her pulse. Let me see if there's anything I can do to help her. She's been shot." And the ICE officers were, no, there's nothing wrong here. Don't worry about it. We have a medic. They'll be here. They'll look at it. Don't worry. And so not only is the fact that he just murdered someone in the street a problem, but the fact that they would then prevent there from being care given to the person who has been shot and clearly is, clearly in harm's way and in need of care. That is just, takes it to a whole new level of disgusting.
Dumbfounding, gobsmacking. We can't go on like this. I can't stand it. It's not okay. Vicariously, I am traumatized. This is unacceptable. This is beyond unacceptable. It is unacceptable squared. And we need something to be done. People don't seem to know what to do, and so we don't do anything. And so this stuff continues, and it gets worse, and it metastasizes, and just gets more and more. Yeah, it just gets worse in new and paralyzing ways.
Well, I would say I do think that we know what to do. The problem is we just can't do it quick enough.
What are you talking about? Voting?
Well, I'm including that as part of it, yes. But I'm also talking about being in the street. I'm also talking about being in the street, taking action. There are groups that are everywhere now that are training people how to respond to these, not to the shooting, of course, but to the invasion of their streets, and how to react and how to respond. And so they're literally they're also training the immigrants in their neighborhoods how to act and what to do in response to these things as well. So how can they be safe? Saying to them, here's things you can do for you to be safe from what's happening. So there's a lot going on. Even an immediate response to this incident in LA and in New York, where there were protests that immediately occurred in response to join the people in Minnesota. Here, in New York, I know that there was a 6 o'clock call for people to come out to Foley Square and join in that protest. So this is not something that's happening in an absence of any sort of a response. There is a response.
I'm pretty whipped up, and I think we've discussed this before. I may repeat myself. I'll try to do it briefly. People are being told to don't open your doors, demand a lawyer, and don't incriminate yourself as they're being beaten into the asphalt, being shot in the face.
Tom, even more so, they're being told, make certain that make certain you're not meeting at the places they expect you to be meeting.
Yeah,
Make certain
yeah,
you're with other people, so you're in a group when
yeah.
you're going somewhere.
Hide. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just pointing out the insufficiency of it all. Yeah, people are doing good things, and I'm not mad that people are doing good things, but it's just so not enough. We need more. We need drastically, exponentially more than we're getting. Um, if if Congress or the judiciary cannot restrain the executive, the only thing left is the people. That's going to be just awful for everybody. There's no good way for that to go down. I don't want to see that happen. Congress could get together today right now if they wanted to, and act. They could impeach these people. They could cut their funding. Hey, whatever. I don't know. They could do things. What are they doing? I don't know. I mean, I see them on social media. I see my representative. He's saying the right thing. He's saying things in the correct direction on social media. Is he said, but we can't go on like this till the midterms. Even if it stayed at this level of effed upness, its current level, untenable, unacceptable. We can't go on like that. And it's not just gonna stay there, Matt. It's gonna get worse tomorrow. And especially if we don't do anything about it, it's going to get worse. If there is not action on this, if there's not justice seen to be done on this, and it's not going to happen. Do you think this is, in my cynical heart, it seems obvious to me, I could be wrong, that they've been egging this on for a while. They've been provoking this for a while. Somebody around the end of the year said, hey guys, we got another 10 and a half months to beat all the coins out of this piñata. We better get started now. They're not mollified by their recent setbacks. They're emboldened. They know it's going to slip through their hands if they can't cheat their way through the next election. And so they're pushing everything. World War III, murdering innocent American civilians in the street. Not that it's any better if this was an immigrant, but at least that would be more on brand for ICE, harassing and injuring immigrants, which is what they seem to want to be seen to do. But anyway, they're murdering Americans, and we need anyway. And so if politicians don't get together and use the power we invest in them to represent us, then the people will have to do it. And you're going to see riots. I wish you could just say we're going to see peaceful protests, but if they keep mowing us down at these peaceful protests, it's not going to get anything done. We need Congress to act. If it falls to the people, it's going to be messy and inefficient and regrettable. We put these people in their place of power to exert it on our behalf, and there's more they could be doing, and I'm getting sick of waiting for it. I'm waiting for that dog to bark, and it just won't.
Well, we'll see what happens like after Ohio State.
I can't resolve it.
Back in the 70s. We'll see.
We'll
see if it follows the same path.
They're grinding us in the dirt.
I do hear what you're saying, and I hear your frustration, and I share that frustration. Of course, this is not a thing that ever should have been allowed to happen, much less that it took place in America at all. So you're absolutely right, but there's no. I don't see that there's a light switch that we can flip to change it. But you're absolutely right. The leadership in the Congress is not going to do anything about this. Not even tomorrow. Not even the day after. They're going to come up with some, lame excuse that lets this continue to go on. So
and
you're. I mean, I don't have an
answer. That's horrendous to me. I can't imagine a world like that. That it's just it's just another Thursday.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I get what you're saying.
I know that.
I don't know No. Say again.
I'm aware that it's Wednesday. Thursday just came out of my mouth as just another day.
Just frustrate, right?
I know what day it is. I'll be
There it
okay.
is tomorrow. Right, and another one that's just popped its head up again is the results from Uvalde, where there was a school shooting in Texas, and the law enforcement folks came around and stood in the hallway and waited for more than an hour while kids were being literally evaporated by gunfire. And there were one or two who finally acted, but there were so many that did not. And now, two of those out of 375 or 376 officers who were there are two of them that are actually going to be going to court over this. And one of them, the former school police officer Adrian Gonzalez, is going to court. The venue was changed out of Uvalde because his lawyer said that he couldn't get a fair trial there. And that somehow it was endangering them to have the case heard in Uvalde. And the other one is the former police chief, Pete Arredondo. That name might might ring a bell a little bit more because his name was used at the time as the example of someone not doing anything who should have been. But first up is going to be Gonzalez, and we're going to hear about that. That's going to be taking place sooner than later, and we'll be hearing that case as it makes its way through the court for not doing his job, for not coming to the aid of those children. There is a criminal justice professor by the name of Phil Stinson at Bowling Green State University, and he has a database of over 25,000 cases where police were charged with crimes, and he has only 2 or 3 similar cases of not following through. And the evidence is only going to make your day worse, Tom, I'm afraid.
You're not finding reason for encouragement in these statistics, please?
Most certainly not. There's the 2022 conviction of a former Baltimore police officer who failed to protect an assault victim. And as the case made its way through the courts and into the Maryland Supreme Court, they actually overturned the conviction and then ruled that he didn't have a legal duty to protect the victim. He had a duty to protect the general public, but not the specific victim. Oh. So have that make sense? I don't know. So with that kind of, and the other precedent, a sheriff's deputy, Scott Peterson, who was charged for failing to confront the shooter at Parkland School, so almost apples to apples comparison there. But that was the first such prosecution in the U.S. for an on-campus shooting. And he wound up getting acquitted by the jury. So a jury heard the case and then acquitted the officer for not acting. So the precedent is not very heartening that Gonzalez or Arredondo, when he gets to the court, will actually face any type of conviction,
sure,
or held accountable. But
yeah, we're doing great.
Yeah, so that's where we are on that. And then down in Oklahoma, there was another shooting case where this is a little bit more of a bizarre one. A guy got a new weapon and decided to try it out in the backyard. So he set up some cans and started shooting. Shooting at those energy drinks. And it just so happened that the line of sight went right into the neighbor's porch. And Sandra Phillips was shot dead.
Unforeseeably, right?
Well,
Unforeseably.
Right.
You couldn't have predicted that if you thought about it for 10 seconds.
While holding a child in her arms, she was is.
Oh my God!
Is when the shot went through. He was later charged. He has been charged with manslaughter, being that he's not law enforcement. Perhaps there'll actually be a consequence. We'll have
And
to
still
wait
white.
and see.
So
Still, and still, I mean, his apparently he broke down when he heard what happened because it never occurred to him that he needed something that would stop the bullet from traveling, or how fast it would go, or how far it would go, or maybe he
yeah,
just didn't know anything about what he was doing.
yeah,
But now
America,
someone's dead because of it.
we're doing great.
And one last, and then we'll have to move on. But of
Sure would hate
course,
to limit his right.
exactly. Um, I guess we're supposed to offer thoughts and prayers at this point.
It's a cost of
Um,
doing business in America. That's what old CK said.
yeah,
We're thinking of you, buddy.
there you go. Maybe we can have some fireworks. And also I'd bring up in this segment the January 6th pipe bomber, Brian Cole Jr. He's been identified as the person who put the pipe bombs by the offices of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And apparently though he is more of a conservative-minded guy, apparently he wanted to make a statement about the political parties being the problem, and he was going to blow them up good. Only he didn't. And they have him identified, and apparently they're not going to let him go. They were challenged to put him on bail and let him continue. The argument was, he hasn't done anything like this since, and he his lawyer was saying he's just a docile guy who just goes to work and comes home, and he's not doing anything that would show that he's a flight risk or anything. So why not cut him loose while he's waiting for the next step? But then the judge said, no, that doesn't sound like a good idea to me. I think we should hang on to this guy. The prosecution also pointed out he had bought plenty of other materials for making pipe bombs that has not been recovered. So it would probably be better not to have him.
Listen, you gotta buy wholesale. If you're gonna make any money at all, you can't just buy retail. You'd be a sucker.
Exactly.
It's my attempt at satire.
Yeah. So moving on to our next segment. This is our next issue, the Stooges of the Week. You may have, if you've joined us before, you may have seen that we have a segment where we have the Stooges of the Week. So let's look at them now. Yes, thank you for getting that up. There we go. The Stooges, Hegseth, right there in the, should we call it the modal?
Hey,
The
Mo,
middle, the modal.
absolutely.
Mo, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's old Curly Fetterman to one side, and oh no, that's
Larry.
That's Larry. I'm sorry, right? Larry to the
Okay.
one side.
Fetterman is a natural curly, but what are you gonna do?
It seemed almost too obvious.
Right? Well, too on
To
the
have him
nose.
be
Don't want to be
curly,
so
right?
unsubtle, Matt. How gauche.
Yeah, exactly. That seemed only fair to give Larry a little bit of a shot, and then the actual Curly on the other side there. And this week awarded to DeSantis for his antics down in Florida. Apparently, Florida has been awarded yet another holding facility for immigrants. And it's a lot of money. It certainly gets some business a lot of money, and certainly gets DeSantis some, I guess, credibility from one segment of people. And so there's going to be a new one, and they're saying they're going to try to put it in the panhandle of Florida, and therefore they can call it the Panhandle Pokey as opposed to the alligator Alcatraz.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the kind of serious government you want on your side, and handling life and death, people's lives in the palm of their hands. You want them to be 11th grade dropout nerds, jocks, and bullying the populace. Apparently, we're going to come to a point where we miss having serious people in charge. I think we're already there, but the rest of the populace doesn't necessarily agree with me in some places.
Too true. And this is a perfect example of it. Silly little nicknames for the sort of, to try to get away with the sort of things that they're getting away with is just shameful, just ridiculous, not serious, and they shouldn't have credibility after they do this sort of nonsense. We are going to jump to our first segment, which is the international news. And of course, the big international news story is that while looking towards negotiating peace with Ukraine, Donald Trump took enough time off to go ahead and invade Venezuela. So making it for the express purpose that he has said repeatedly is to get their oil. Now, his lackeys all run to media sources and give explanations of there being weapons of mass destruction and the war on drugs and the importance of yada, yada, yada. But Trump himself consistently says, no, this is about the oil. We want the oil. We're going to get some. We're going to maybe sell some off, and we'll be in charge of the oil for a little while, see how that goes. And the history of that is that once upon a time, Exxon had the oil and was doing quite well for itself. And they were abusive enough that eventually there was an uprising. And in fact, Hugo Chavez was elected the president before he went on to do his horrible things. But what he did do that was not so horrible was he nationalized the oil fields, and all of the money that came in, because Venezuela is the largest resource holder of oil in the world, even more than OPEC, other OPEC nations. And then he took the money that was he took the profits from the oil and then just put it into social programs, put it into things that actually mattered to the people of Venezuela. And there was a very popular period of time where people were actually taken care of. And that was, it went very well right up until Chavez died and Maduro took over. Maduro was not the same, charismatic type of guy who was who is or was an amazing leader who was able to run things well, and production has dropped dramatically. At one point, it was something like 3 million barrels, and then recently it's been 1 million in comparison. They're saying that the part of the argument that the conservatives are giving is, well, it's that's the problem. The problem is that the old machinery is not being kept up like the oil companies would keep it up, and so it's all their fault for not having the letting the materials run down as far as what does the job. So this is part of the plan. The plan is we're going to get the oil guys back in, and they'll do well. They'll get everything back into production like it should be, and we'll have more oil. And isn't that excellent? But they're also the ones who ran the country into the ground so that they wanted to wind up taking on Hugo Chavez as their leader. So where are we going with that? And also, who do you think is going to they're going to bring in Exxon. They're going to bring in the guys who had it before, right? Well, those guys have all gone off to Canada and have been pumping the oil out there. Are they going to want to rush back to Venezuela to put together a 10-year plan for several $1 billion worth of money, profit, to reinvest in this place when they've already done that and have the profit coming in from other places? So what is going to happen next? It's very hard to tell. I don't know if we have those numbers. Do we have those charts of we may not, the oil production over time?
Sure.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so average daily production, as you can see, 2013, 2014, the highs, and then moving down all the way to where we are now, which is under a million. So now you see what the problem is. The largest oil fields aren't doing enough, you know, from a certain perspective, and they're really doing all of this just to help us by being able to return the good old days of yesteryear, which weren't. So I don't know what you think of Venezuela.
Well, I'll tell you, you said a lot of things I was going to say. Um, in that, let me walk through it in my own way, and I realize I'm going to be a little redundant, so I'll try to be brief. But um, the idea was to come take the oil. Okay, first of all, that's illegal. You can't do that. But if you could, you'd need, and apparently we're going to invite a bunch of U.S. oil executives to get their wieners in this thing first. And but the as I understand it, Venezuelan oil, their oil resources are very heavy and hard to pump and harder to refine. Uh, and America, and apparently their infrastructure isn't great there, so they'd need, like you said, a 10-year plan to invest. That word was invest. And we can't even. We're less than a week in, and we can't decide whether we're running the country or not. But between, like, in the 36 hours between Trump said we're going to run the place and Marco Rubio got on 2 or 3 morning shows, they couldn't keep their story straight about what's going on. Are we running Venezuela, or are we just quarantining their oil, or whatever he said? Some nonsense. He could not answer direct questions about under what authority they acted or who's running the joint. And so if you're maybe I'm sure they have better communication with their business backers who would be in on this type of thing. You would think there'd be some sort of collusion on one level or another. So maybe they talk to them better than they talk to us. But from what I can tell, it looks like a mess. It looks like a real Three Stooges job. And are you going to invest 10 years and untold billions of dollars for on a betting on what Trump will do next week or next month or next year? I mean, maybe, but this guy screws everything he gets a hold of and gets involved with. So I can't imagine. And so I don't know what the purpose was of it. Maybe I'm just wrong, and they're going to invest and squeeze all the money out of a South American country. But it seems to me that it doesn't add up. And another thing, speaking of conspiracies, somebody pointed out to me, somebody on social media pointed out to me and a lot of other people that when they go in and get you, they rough you up. And the Maduro looked pretty fresh. And so it doesn't add up, I guess is what I'm saying.
Gotcha. And well, here's another story, though. I think that you might find a little more that might be more to your favor, and that is what's been going on in Malaysia. In this past week, the High Court there has sentenced the former Prime Minister to 15 years in prison and ordered roughly $3.3 billion in fines and asset seizures over the misuse of the government's funds. The court found that he was guilty of abuse of power and money laundering, and that the sovereign fund that was supposed to take care of the government and the country, that he and his associates siphoned off about $4.5 billion between 2009 and 2014. and they ran it through other countries. So the US and Singapore and Switzerland, of course, Switzerland. Um, and even that some of it was used for Hollywood movies. If you remember The Wolf of Wall Street, part of the funding for that was through this guy's corrupt money laundering, uh, perhaps appropriately.
Right, on brand a little bit there.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, and also Goldman Sachs was in on it, so they've also are facing billions in fines for their involvement. Nothing will happen, and they'll be up and running again next week. But this guy will at least be imprisoned, and this is on top of a current sentence that he's already serving until 2028. So the 15 years will be tacked on after that, starting in 2028, and we'll keep him in prison for another 15 years. So that sounds kind of good. I think that's fair enough.
Yeah, that's a life sentence.
Yeah, easily. We'll see how it plays out. But there's a little bit of good news for you. There's the sort of thing I think that you're thinking about, and would like to see more, more broadly happen.
Consequences.
Exactly. What are the coincidences in other places? Well, maybe not so good, or maybe not yet, is where we are and where places like Iran are. There's been a lot of economic problems, and the country's been facing, and the people don't like it. The crashing economy is being responded to by protests. People are going into the streets and protesting, and the government is killing them. So a number of protesters have been killed. And in fact, there were 1,500 executions in the month of December by the government of protesters. So a little bit of a different scale, but absolutely gruesome, absolutely horrible.
Yeah, pretty bad.
All right. Well,
I don't want to get political, and but that's pretty bad.
I know this sort of stuff doesn't bug you, so you're not going to be upset by this kind of thing.
Right.
But there's also, of course, Saudi Arabia, where they're supporting continued attacks. In Yemen, they've been going at each other for years and decades, and that is probably one of those things that Trump's been trying to take credit for creating peace from. That's the sort of long-term conflict that's not resolvable easily, but he will say that he did, and blah blah
He
blah.
stopped it already.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, don't believe the newspapers. He stopped it already.
Yeah. And actually, one of those that is most specifically one of his pieces of handiwork is over in the Congo. The Congo and Rwanda have been fighting, and this is one that Trump made a big announcement of having brought everyone to peace, and what a wonderful job he did. The catch is that Rwanda had some mercenaries, a group called M23 that they were having, that they brought into the fight. And M23 was not part of the peace process and not part of these discussions or whatever it was that did take place. So they didn't stop fighting. They took over several more towns and several more cities in Congo, and the fighting has continued consistently, with or without anyone claiming a peace prize from a soccer organization or any other athletic organization. And while we're here, I will throw in one other point before moving on, and that is that in India, there's been a problem with sewage and air quality. And the best guess is that devolution of power to local authorities would allow for solutions to occur. The local authority would be the one who's closest to it. They'd be able to respond to it most quickly and most effectively. But that de-evolution has been blocked by authorities up the chain who don't want to lose the power. And so they're not happy about local power increasing. But what that means is there's garbage that's not collected and is multiplying all over the streets instead, and no one's filling in the potholes as they happen. It's just not going to happen. The larger authorities not even going to know they happen, much less care enough to fill them. And of course, poor air quality. So the question is, what will happen? Is that enough? What is their point of a boiling point, their Bickle point, where they will find themselves at a point where they just can't take it and respond and actually do something? We'll have to keep track of what happens there. Anything else on international before we move on?
No, sir. Let's keep it moving.
Let's do. We are moving on to the issue of Tim Walz up in Minnesota. Now, this was something we had talked about before the other incidents occurred, but there was a story. The big story before today in Minnesota was that Tim Walz, as governor, was not going to run for a third term, and perhaps that's in a result of the backlash from the story about child care fraud that's allegedly happening. But that's also interesting because the child care fraud is something that's been investigated for something like 10 years. It's actually Biden's Department of Justice that carried out prosecution of over 90 people related to the issue. So the ones who have actually been responding to it, who have actually responded to it, are the Democratic officials while in government. But now it's a big story, so everyone is very concerned, and there's all sorts of actions that Republicans now are preventing any funding to going to Minnesota over for childcare because of a situation that's been there for 10 years that they just choose to not follow what's happening. There is some discussion, and there's been some rumors that Amy Klobuchar, who's a senator, may run for governor now that Walz has said he's not. So that's the latest on that. Anything you'd care to say about Governor Walz?
I feel like I'm missing the point on Walz. Why is he not running for governor? Is it just because of this this issue with childcare, or is there more to it?
There may be more to it. I don't know that I don't know. I don't know what he said about it, and I don't know that he said because of this either.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
Well, I mean, he was not a successful vice presidential candidate, but he was still seemed to be well liked, as far as I could tell, among people who might like him. And so for him to just let go of the brass ring, as it were, I would think there would be a more obvious reason. So I don't know if there's just not. I don't know. I just want to make sure. Sometimes I miss some coverage, and there's like an angle to a story that I did not see at all. So I thought I'd check.
Fair enough, and a fair question, and we should find out as well if there's not something that we're missing that he is saying or others are saying, because you're right, the timing of it certainly makes it look like it's related to the Republican nonsense. So,
yeah, which is, I understand it as partially manufactured and totally overhyped.
Fair point. And that brings us to our next issue, which is not overblown or nonsense, which is the budget. And in this case, the budget of the United States. There is an issue going on because of what's happening in Congress, how the budget is dealt with, and, will it be passed or not? And on top of it, we think of a budget as one thing, but in government, there's actually a number of different budgets. The departments have budgets. So you have to do those, and then you put them together, and you put it together for a larger package, and then there's a larger budget that has to be voted on. So part of where we are right now is that there are 6 departmental budgets that need to be looked at, reviewed, and voted on, and then they can go to the larger package of what we think of as the budget. And with the chaos that's going on there now with their leadership, Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, is finding he's having trouble with a lot of his support, or people, I should say, people, supporters. I don't know what word to use nowadays, but the Republicans who are supposed to be following him. And of course, the only reason he's Speaker is that there are more Republicans than Democrats in the House, and they decide who's going to be the Speaker by vote. Marjorie Taylor Greene left. She quit last week, was her last day. So that's one less Republican. There's a representative from Northeast California who died the other day.
Doug LaMalfa.
Who died. And then there's a third Republican who I believe he and his wife were in a car accident. And he's one of these gentlemen who's been in the House for decades on end. He's over 80 years old, in a car crash. And of course, Speaker Johnson's office is like, oh, he's fine. No problem. But, you know, I think that might not be exactly a medical diagnosis, because
Right.
An 80-year-old who's in a car accident and needs hospitalization.
He can vote through his catheter.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah, exactly. How do you, yeah. If
We'll,
it takes pressing the button.
we'll fix that in post.
Too true. Bring it on. So the question is has Johnson not only lost enough votes, but has he lost enough favor of people? Because when Marjorie Taylor Greene left, she was very disparaging of him and not restrained in her criticism of Johnson and the other leadership. So is that something that was just her on the way out, or is she expressing something that other House members won't say publicly but are talking about? And if so, does that mean that if there were a leadership challenge that there'd be enough votes to change the Speaker? Everybody agrees, no matter who you are, left, right, conservative, liberal, whatever. Everybody says Johnson is just such a, well, he's crap. Yeah, he's henpecked by the White House. He doesn't do things himself. He is, he's just being obedient. And that talks to the issues that you were speaking about earlier. You don't get things done if you're too busy trying to please the leader in a system of government where you're supposed to have checks and balances between the different branches.
Right.
But now the branches, the legislative branch is tamed quite well by the executive, getting away with all sorts of things and not being challenged. So so the question then is that really something that's widespread enough to cause a challenge to his leadership? And then, of course, that goes into the budget too, because what if they decide to make this vote challenging him on his leadership while they're trying to get the budget passed? That could be, it could be devastating. It could cause a whole sort of problem with budgets not being passed and government having to shut down again. We all know what happened last time the government shut down. It's very handy that the Republicans will say it's all the Democrats' fault, blah, blah, blah. But very clearly, this is what happens when you don't have solid leadership, the responsible leadership in charge. So what will happen next? I don't know if you have any thoughts about budget or about Johnson.
I think the most interesting thing about the budget and Mike Johnson is that Trump is in the Epstein files and we should see them. I know that's a little snarky and definitely a dodge, but that's all I've got for you.
Not actually, that should be what we say at the end of every segment.
Yeah.
We're talking about Venezuela? Absolutely. And we should be seeing the Epstein files to help clear things up. No, you're absolutely right. That's another thing that apparently now they're saying there's. Well, let's wrap
Right.
up on the budget and then we'll move on to one or two things, including the dump Trump, and we can talk about it there. But there is a question of um, what the healthcare fix is, and because of, you may recall a few weeks ago that Dick Durbin, one of the Democratic senators, who had apparently something to do with ending the government shutdown. Part of what he had said at the time was, well, we are going to end the shutdown, but we're going to not address healthcare. And this will be, now this becomes Donald Trump's issue. He has to do something to resolve the subsidies expiring from the ACA, and we're putting it in his hands. And here he's got a plan. He's been talking about having a plan for years. There's always that next week we're going to release the healthcare plan.
2 weeks. Concepts of a plan.
Con,
Dog ate my homework. Sun was in my eyes. Yeah. We'll
exactly.
take anything, apparently. Even a pale pantomime of an excuse will apparently pacify us. This is ridiculous. I don't want to be here anymore.
Well, and here we go again. I mean, Trump had a meeting with the Republican leadership about this and apparently was saying to them, oh, healthcare, that's an easy fix. That's something you guys should have already done. So right. He's now saying they should have done it. They're saying he should have a plan, which he doesn't. And now he's saying things like, well, the actual fix is easy enough. We can all do that. There's one sticking point, which is the Hyde Act, which is the Republican now law. It's law now, but it was a Republican strategy to prevent federal funds from being used for abortions. And because this was so important to them, they put it in the law as the Hyde Act. And they had control, so they were able to pass it at the time. That's what happens when you vote Republican. Enough people. So now Trump is saying, that has to be, you have to be flexible about the Hyde Act. You have to maybe withdraw it, and maybe, we can get healthcare done without worrying about it. And, that's the thing. Well, the thing is, the Republicans put it there because they could, and they did it because they wanted it there. And so the Senate Majority Leader, who nowadays is John Thune, Mitch McConnell is gone, just from the leadership role, so that you know. So Senate Majority Leader.
Don't do that. I thought you had breaking news. Go ahead.
Not the big one yet, but it is true that the leadership changed a while back, and the new guy, or the current guy, I should say, is John Thune. And so current Republican Senate Majority Leader and future PolitiPod Live Stooge of the Week says that the Hyde Act is the potential sticking point, not an easy thing to just go through. And to be fair, he was able to say it without falling over or becoming comatose. So that was different.
That's a win.
Okay, so I believe we are moving on here to local government, the new segment where we talk about things happening in local governments. And a big story here for the past week in local governments was the inauguration of a new mayor in New York City. Zoran Mamdani won the election. He absolutely trounced people in the primary and then went on to win a majority of the votes in the election. So on a nice cold January 1st day in New York, he was inaugurated. And actually, Tom pointed this out, I think last episode, where you had said that the actual thing happened like a minute past midnight in a subway station, an abandoned subway station. They did it there for the aesthetics. And Bernie Sanders came in and did the swearing in service and made him mayor as soon as possibly, as soon as they possibly could. 1 minute after midnight. Okay, go. And then what happened later in the day was a inauguration with speeches and doing the doing it publicly, which is what was important. It was done on the steps of City Hall. There were there was a seating section for some people, but most people were in the street. The police closed down Broadway and actually used a quadruple barrier system where they blocked off the businesses so you couldn't go into the businesses. They blocked off just outside of the sidewalk so that the road was also clear.
Mm.
And they were using the road. The police were using the road, and the commanders were walking up and down, and they had little cutouts every 30 yards or something like that where the fence would push into the sidewalk. So you're walking 3 to 5 people abreast going down the sidewalk, and then every 30 feet or so, you have to go single file.
Ah.
So that's, I guess, crowd control.
Huh.
I don't know. It was also, I mean, it was helpful for them in case a car came down the aisle. If the police vehicle needed to get through, then
Yeah.
they would have the alcoves to duck into and, get out of the way. But what it meant in the way they had set it up, it was clearly, the crowd of thousands of people, well over 10,000 people or 30,000 people, or whatever it was, trying to walk down Broadway between the dozen streets between City Hall and where they let people in. There's a street called Liberty Street. And in the place they were letting folks in, they're supposed to let folks in starting at 11. I was in line before that. I know I didn't get through until 12:45, in part because there was a huge crowd. And then they narrowed it down to basically with the railings down to the size of a doorway, and had one officer letting people in. And then you funneled into 4 channels and then had to go up, and there were 4 or 5 officers with the TSA wands to do security checks. So 10,000 people, that's going to take a little bit, and it did. But the crowd itself was absolutely so jubilant that they didn't even let this kind of stuff go, didn't let this get to their heads. They were laughing and joking, and people were having conversations not only with their friends, but they were talking to people who were there standing with them, and everybody was having a good time. Very cold after 4 hours. I don't know what you were wearing, but you were cold.
What was the temperature?
It was, with the wind chill, it was around 10.
Ooh.
And so 20-degree weather with a wind chill, it pushed it down to 10.
Wow.
And I know I had, thermals and 3 layers and a winter jacket.
Right.
And after 4 hours, even I was feeling it. It was cold, but everybody was so happy and wanted to celebrate and wanted there to be a positive thing. There were speeches given by the 3 people who were technically sworn in. There was the comptroller, Levine, and the public advocate, which I know people in other places don't have a public advocate. There's a fellow by the name of Jamani Williams, who is our public advocate, who is a balance to the mayor in some regards, someone who is supposed to be a check on the mayor. And he was sworn in as well. He was re-elected, actually. He's been there for a couple of terms, and he's really a phenomenal guy. Who really cares about people. In fact, his speech at the inauguration, he actually broke down in tears, talking about the sort of things that he wanted to be able to show his daughter that he was able to achieve, and that he tried to talk to himself from when he was a kid and didn't have the advantages, and it really there was an emotional response there, and we all felt it. We all, he had said, everybody hold hands now. Can you just grab hand? And everybody, without even questioning, everybody started grabbing each other's hands, and for the next part of it. And so a very emotional part of his speech, which was really quite lovely. And I believe there is Jumaane Williams giving his speech, and he was certainly talking about the issues with, as you were talking about earlier, the issues with immigrants and how he wants to challenge it and not let just things happen just because they're happening. And a little idea of the crowd that was there. These were just from my cell phone, so I'm not able to give you the broader picture, but you can see it's packed solid. They had these just behind the crowd. You can see the tower that is the top of the city hall against the backdrop of a larger housing unit. But the city hall there is that other building. So the steps are right there, just above the left of, or just below the big screen. But to help the crowd see, they had these huge screens set up. There were 12 of them. They were every 1 or 2 blocks with a sound system that was a concert type setup. So everything was, all of us were able to see what was happening up close, even though we couldn't get as close as the people who were in the seats. Just to show you how New York it was, the announcer kept saying, "There are still seats stage left." Which after the 4th or 5th time, all of us who were standing up, 10 blocks away, got a big kick out of hearing him talk about the extra seats that are available stage left. And I believe we even had a reporter on the scene there, and let's see if we can see if we can get his filed report. Hey, Tom and Matt. I'm in New York City over by Broadway and Liberty. We're all set up for seeing the inauguration of the new mayor, Zoran Mondami. The actual speechifying will be done down by City Hall. There's a big field just by there, and VIPs are allowed to be there. The rest of us are over here. We have been set up. I see there's a sizable crowd. All waiting to be let in. Things were supposed to kick off with our being let in at 11. It's about 11:45 now, hoping that we'll be let in soon. The setup is, we're about a dozen blocks away from City Hall. There have been blockades set up all along Broadway. But as well, there are large screens and concert-style speakers set up. So anything that is said over by the podium will be clearly heard all up and down Broadway. And you will be able to, as long as you're within a block or two of any of those big screens, you'll be able to see absolutely everything that's going on. If we're let in here in the next half hour or so, then I will report again. Hello again, this is Matt. Hi Matt and Tom, it's Matt. And about 12:45, we finally got in, walked all the way down Broadway. The police have set up kettle formation blockades all up and down the street. There are teams of scores of police at every block. They're certainly doing a show of force. There are even canine forces out to walk up and down the center of the aisle that they've created down the street. But there's a lot of goodwill among the participants. Folks who are here for the show are all in a very calm and good-natured, are all calm and good-natured. We have probably about another 15-20 minutes before things start, the official start. As you can see in the background, there you've got a band or a DJ playing, and just beyond the back, behind that huge screen, you can actually see City Hall, where the festivities will actually take place, where the speechifying will happen. The people are being, the people are, as I said, calm and very good-natured, although it also could be that they're just frozen. It's about 11 degrees and there is a big, about 20-mile-an-hour winds, that help make it feel a little bit colder. All right. Let's see if we can bring things back.
Man, that was some fantastic man on the scene, intrepid reporter business. I thought that was great. I was thrilled to have a PolitiPod Live correspondent on the scene.
Exactly. And next time we get a mayor in New York City, it's your turn.
I'm down.
PolitiPod Live will fly you in and have you stay at a fabulous resort, so that you can do the
No expenses
live.
paid. Got it.
But it is exactly what I've said twice now, and I'm certainly glad that I was there, not just for the recording, but also to simply hear what was being said and to hear it firsthand.
Historic moment.
Definitely historic. And Mayor Mandami was saying he ran on the way he ran was the Democratic Socialist message. He said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm not setting anything aside. You've heard all sorts of people, and both Sanders and Mamdani said, you've heard people disparage what's they're calling so radical, and it's not radical that there would be buses that work and free and are running faster than they've been. It's not radical to have childcare. It's not radical to raise a rate of the business tax so that it's equal to what's being done in New Jersey. None of the things that were actually offered were wild or radical. And although it's an easy message and that's what people are going to say, you got to actually look at what we're talking about. So he's got his turn. He's been inaugurated. It's his time.
Absolutely. Can't wait to see what he does.
And we'll report it here on PolitiPod Live.
That's right. We got a guy on the inside, don't you know?
We are going to bring. Actually, we'll do a dump Trump. I'm sorry. No, that's what Trump we want. Dump. Right. It's what we're doing is a Trump dump. What we want is a dump Trump. Right. Gotcha. I've got to start coming to the meetings.
The Antifa meetings? I thought you were the president of Antifa. No?
That's where I wouldn't be at the headquarters otherwise.
That's right.
So speaking of the Trump dump, we should certainly notice and recognize that January 6th was the 5th anniversary of the insurrection, supported monetarily and verbally by the president, Donald Trump, and those who were harmed, the police officers who not only were harmed, but there were a number who committed suicide afterwards, that there's a real cost to ignoring what happened and trying to soft sell it as just a couple of tourists who were there and that kind of stuff, which is what is going on.
As I've seen it said in social media, or the regular media, the January 6th didn't fail. It just took this long to come to fruition.
Yeah.
It's a little
what
cynical,
nonsense. Yeah. What a bunch of crap. I mean,
it ain't entirely wrong, though. Look where we are, for Pete's sake.
Well, I mean, I would disagree that this is resolved, that this is something that is done. But yeah, I get your point. I see what you're saying. We're certainly not where we need to be or should be or want to be. And we are here where it's all a matter of who can grab as much money as he can, whether it's a child cancer charity or invading Venezuela in order to distract from the Epstein files. Hey, speaking of the Epstein files.
That's right.
Turns out there's at least, they're saying, 5 million pages of documentation. This is the 5 million pages that they also said didn't exist, and a portion of which, yet before that, we were told was on Pam Bondi's desk. But now there's 5 million pages, and there'll be another couple 100,000 pages coming out soon, sometime. So, in other words, the government's admitting that there's just about 0.5% of the files that have been released, when the law that was passed both by the legislative and signed into law by a certain executive demanded that they were released on a particular day, which is long gone. Because of that, there is a Maryland representative, Jamie Raskin, who has put together a lawsuit to challenge the delay in the release of the Epstein files. It is going through the courts, and it's the only thing that seems to work is to have things go through the courts. There's always
takes forever. Absolutely.
Exactly. It does take forever. It's always a delay, and it's always going back and forth. But the only thing that actually seems to matter here is what a court says. So, going through the courts, and of course, it's simply a tactic to delay resolution, and we'll see how this all plays out. The speculation of what is in the 4,900,000 pages that have not been released could be anything. I mean, there could be allegedly a picture of Lindsey Graham on the other side of the couch that J.D. Vance is fucking and rubbing up against an armoire that's behind it. I don't know.
We don't know. I don't know. We're just asking questions here. Could be.
Exactly. It's all alleged.
Until we know, we don't know.
Exactly. So, and who knows what Melania's teaching Barron and the pictures that are shown there. But maybe we'll see once they're released whether that is a thing that is true or not.
That's right.
So just 4,900,000 pages to go, and we'll know the answer.
Right. At this rate, would be like 12 years from now.
Is there anything about vetoes that you want to bring up? And
the House is supposed to vote tomorrow to override 2 vetoes by President Trump that he struck down a couple of things passed by Congress, and I'm drawing a blank on what they were. Let's see. The underlying legislation would support the local Miccosukee tribe, which has been at odds with the White House over the administration's plans to build its Alligator Alcatraz immigrant detention center. And the other bill Trump scuttled last month would fund a water infrastructure project in Colorado, which is currently ensnared in the president's fight with the state's congressional delegation over cuts to a climate center in the state.
Now that one we discussed. We did discuss that one. That okay. Southeast Colorado, it's a rural community. The bill in the House was carried by Lauren Boebert, of all people, and moved by Paul Gosar. So the right wing, the far right, alt-right, so far right that they're,
almost back around to the left again if you're not careful. Yeah.
Almost back around to the left. But so far right that it doesn't make sense that he's cutting them off at the knees. Although there is there's this thing about, well, Boebert voted for the Epstein list to be released, so this is Trump making himself even with her. It's a project that's been around since the 60s. They've been trying to work it, and there was a delay in it at one point, and then etc. So it's something that's been around. It's not something new. It's not something terribly radical. It's just getting water to people who need it out in a rural community.
It's woke.
as exactly right. Um, as red a community as you can get in the southeast part of Colorado, and
Yeah.
yet here he is cutting these people off at the knees so that they don't have water. They don't have drinking water. I mean, it's insane. And so that I certainly hope that the House and Senate are able to get the.
I mean, if it's got to happen to somebody,
You could say that.
I mean, there's a certain poetic justice.
Yeah, well, there is. You did point it out, and it's a fair point.
There it is.
So this is what you get, folks. Even when you're the big supporters. Okay, speaking of supporters,
Government by spite.
Yeah. Speaking of supporting something over nothing, did you know that we do something called the Epstein Count Up? And we're listing the days since the unredacted Epstein list has not been released, which includes today, which is the 3,858th day of said record.
And counting.
And continuing to count as until that redaction finds its way off the page. Thanks for joining us at PolitiPod Live for Political Talk. You're welcome to join us every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here for PolitiPod Live. If you want political laughs, you can join us and a half dozen of our friends for our monthly political comedy podcast, PolitiPod, which you'll find at soundcloud.com/PolitiPod. This
is Tom Bickle
and Matt Nisanoff saying good night.